We have someone that has been very, very well known throughout the whole Catholic Church in the pro-life movement, with Father Frank Pavone. He will speak to us today on healing from the effects of abortion and the new shrine of the Holy Innocents, which will be co-shared with Father Anthony Gramlich. But just briefly about Father Pavone. Father Frank is the director of the Priests for Life and president of the National Pro-Life Religious Council, a coalition of groups from different denominations working to end the abortion. He is also pastoral director and chairman of the board of Rachel's Vineyard, an international retreat program for post-abortion healing. In 2004, Father Frank founded the Missionaries of the Gospel of Life. Here I'd like to, from my own personal awareness, speak about Father Frank as someone who had the courage to do what he does. Courage to do what he does. How essential it is. We don't speak enough, and may God be praised for giving us him, Father Frank. Father Frank, we'd like to welcome you. And I'll speak a little bit briefly about Father Anthony Gramlich a little bit later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, it's so great to be back at this Divine Mercy Conference. It is becoming an annual reunion for many of us. And though, of course, so many of us also see each other during the course of the year at different events and devotions, and, of course, in the day-to-day work that you all do in one way or another to advance the kingdom of God. And brothers and sisters, the kingdom of God is advancing, it is growing, and it is growing in the specific arena of the defense of life. And there is one simple reason why, despite any political obstacles that we face, and as we all know, we have some new political obstacles here in the United States and throughout the world. But despite any political obstacles that we may face, despite any kinds of setbacks or attacks from the enemy or resistance from those who promote the culture of death, the reason why this movement and this kingdom continue to advance is very simple. Victory is not simply a goal that we seek. Victory is our starting point, because Jesus Christ is risen. Isn't this why Divine Mercy Sunday is the same day as the octave of Easter? Why is that? Because mercy, which at its core is the victory over evil, the victory over alienation and division and condemnation. The answer to all that, which is mercy, which brings life, flows directly from the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. Because in that resurrection, we have the entire kingdom of evil overturned, the entire kingdom of death defeated. So divine mercy and the resurrection are part and parcel of the same reality. So people ask me, especially after the elections of 2008, well, has the pro-life movement suffered some kind of setback here? How are we able to progress? We are progressing, and we are seeing more and more the effects of the victory of life and the victory of mercy, which are really one and the same. I have shared with you before at this particular conference, and it bears repeating, the marvelous opportunity that I have as Director of Priests for Life to likewise oversee and help coordinate the largest ministry in the world for healing after abortion. It's called Rachel's Vineyard. Many of you here are involved in that particular ministry, and there are many other ministries for healing after abortion, some based right here in the New York Archdiocese, the Sisters of Life, some of whom are here, conduct retreats for healing after abortion. One is going on right now as we speak, not that far from here. And we have this work going on worldwide. Why? Because more and more people are coming forward, having learned by bitter personal experience that abortion is a dead end. Having learned by painful, devastating experience that abortion is a false promise. It doesn't solve anybody's problems. It only creates more. It doesn't heal a person. It's not a magic wand that somehow makes them unpregnant so they can go back to exactly the way things were before they learned that they were pregnant. It simply doesn't work that way. Once you begin carrying a child within you, no matter how small that child is, you are, from that moment forward, a mother forever. The only thing that can change is whether you are the mother of a living child or a dead child, but you are a mother. And that dynamic doesn't change, so that the effort to deny that brings pain. The effort to deny that truth introduces confusion and alienation into your life at every level. The point I'm making is this. We've had now in this country abortion became legal in the United States in 1973. So we've had some 36 years of unrestricted abortion on demand, some 50 million children killed by this procedure. Now, that's a lot of people in terms of moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles and friends also bearing the wounds of those abortions. Well, when you go on for so long with so many of these killings, you're going to have a lot of hurting people. And eventually they come forward to seek healing. Now, there's a delay factor. Why? Because inherent in the whole process of getting an abortion is denial. You can't get the procedure in the first place unless you deliberately alienate yourself from the humanity of that child and the responsibility you have to that child. So there is a denial right from the start. And then people going through this procedure break out of that denial sooner or later. Sometimes they break out of that denial as soon as they wake up from the anesthesia. And they're crying while still in the recovery room, "Oh, I killed my baby, what do I do now?" Others pretend to go on with life business as usual for years and even decades. But friends, you can't do that forever. Eventually, something breaks the denial. Something breaks the denial, either a moment of honesty in self-examination and prayer, where one comes to that admission in the presence of God that I did something of which I need to repent, or maybe the birth of a subsequent child, or maybe your sister or your cousin or your daughter has a child, and any of those experiences, or perhaps hearing something or seeing something about abortion, there can be any number of factors that help a person to break out of denial about what they did, and then they need to run to mercy. They need to find mercy somehow. And where is that need for mercy more urgent than in the reality of abortion? Rachel's Vineyard, every day throughout the world, is welcoming men and women back to find that healing and forgiveness of Christ. Do you know that we minister to people who have had 5, 10, 20? I've ministered to people who have had 25 abortions. It's incredible. One has to wonder. Of course, every time I bring this up, people say, well, how can this be? How can a person have so many abortions? You know how it happens? One abortion leads to another. Because a person becomes so devastated, so disconnected from their true selves, so absolutely devoid of self-esteem, that on the one hand, they feel compelled to have another child, because when you interrupt a pregnancy, you're interrupting a rhythm of the body. It's very much like getting your sleep interrupted. If you're trying to sleep through the night and then you get interrupted from a deep sleep, what does your body want to do? Want to go back to sleep. It's a biological rhythm that wants to complete its natural course. So when the human being is pregnant, and then the pregnancy is interrupted in an unnatural way, such as by abortion, the biorhythm, the tendency then is to want to get pregnant again and to bring it through to completion. So on the one hand, you have that dynamic, and on the other hand, you have the dynamic that says, well, I just killed my baby. They realize that on one level or another. I just killed my baby, and I'm not worthy, therefore, to be a mother. And so you have these competing dynamics. And that's what leads to one abortion after another. You have an abortion, they want to get pregnant again, but then through the pregnancy they say, I'm not worthy to bring this to completion, so they abort again. Another reason for these multiple abortions is simply this. When we endure a trauma that we don't understand, we repeat it in the effort to understand it. You ever wonder why somebody who gets into a bad, abusive relationship either can't seem to get out of it even though they realize how bad it is, or they go from one to another and they're all just as bad and abusive? Why does that happen? You look at a person doing this sometimes and you say, what's the matter with you? Don't you realize that what you're doing is hurting you? Of course they do. Of course they realize it. That's why they're doing it. Because they want to put themselves back in the hurtful situation in an attempt to master it, in an attempt to understand the pain. And we do this very often unconsciously. We don't realize that that's exactly what we're doing, but that's a very normal tendency. We go back to the trauma in order to try and master it. So Rachel's Vineyard is bringing this healing to so many people, as are so many other ministries for healing after abortion. And then, of course, many of those who get healed want to speak out about their experience. And that's where we have, through Priests for Life, the Silent No More Awareness campaign. And some of you here are also involved in that. This is the effort by which these men and women who've lost a child to abortion and who have been healed and forgiven bear public witness and public testimony at gatherings, in churches, on radio and television programs, in legislative assemblies, and anywhere else where they can make their voice heard, so that they can show others that abortion is a dead end and encourage them not to go down that road, and, even more importantly, so that they can witness to divine mercy. Now, I want to come back to that point at the end and talk about these beautiful testimonies. But in the midst of sharing their testimonies, these women give us a particular insight into the effects of abortion. And I want to read for you today a few words from some of those who have shared their testimonies in our Silent No More Awareness campaign. And you'll see a few different dynamics here about what an abortion does to a person. What I want to point out to you today, my friends, is this. It's much more than just, I feel guilty for having committed a sin. It's much more than that. We all know what that's like. We all sin. We all feel guilty for it to one extent or another. And then we go back and we seek God's forgiveness. But the wound of abortion is much deeper than, I feel terribly guilty for having committed a terrible sin. There is a wound that strikes to the very depths of our humanity. Let me read a few of these testimonies and you'll see some of the characteristics of this. One woman writes, "For years after my abortion, the guilt, shame, and pain weighed me down. I had done something that was immoral and unthinkable. And I continued on a path in my life and in relationships that compromised my morals, hurt my body, and made me feel less and less proud of myself. Many people saw me as a successful, loving, and spiritual person. What they didn't know was that I lived in fear. Fear of telling the secret of my abortion, fear of getting too close to a man, fear of being too close to God. I was afraid of dealing with the most hurtful, traumatic experience of my life." And notice some of the things she says. People can be experts at hiding their pain. She said people looked at me and they said, well, there's a spiritual person, successful person, a loving person. People can be experts in hiding their pain. Every one of us knows someone who has had an abortion. It's just that we might not realize that they had an abortion. But I guarantee you today, there's not a person in this room that doesn't know somebody who's had an abortion. Fear. Notice, isn't this sad? She says she was afraid of being too close to God. That's why the devotion to divine mercy is so critically important. Because these mothers of aborted children, and this applies to the fathers, it even applies to the abortionists, many of whom are also on a path of conversion and healing, and I minister to a lot of them around the world. I'll tell you some of those stories in a moment. These individuals need to hear explicitly from us, clergy and laity alike, that the doors of the church are open, that God wants them to come back, that God has not stopped loving them. They need to hear that explicitly because down in their hearts they're not quite sure that that can be true. And they're not going to come to that conclusion on their own. Yes, they may have grown up hearing all about that. They may be people who are involved in the church, reading the scriptures. That doesn't mean they're convinced of it. They need to have someone telling them very explicitly that even though you have committed this, what the church calls an unspeakable crime, nevertheless, the doors of the church are open. The rays of the mercy of Jesus from his sacred heart are falling even upon you. Here's another individual who writes, the reality of my abortion didn't hit me till it was too late. I didn't connect to my child until he was being ripped apart inside of me. I knew that my baby knew that it was me, his mother, doing this to him. I felt as though everything that was ever decent, holy, or innocent within me left at that moment. All I wanted to do was to die. Now listen to how similar this next woman's testimony is. This was right after her abortion. She said, waiting for the bus, all alone, on a cold December day, it started to rain, and I too started to rain inside. I cried and cried so deep and sorrowful as never before. I felt I was mourning for a dead person, and the dead one was me. You cannot have the child within you killed without having part of you killed. It just doesn't happen. It's not true to say that abortion harms and wounds some of the women who get the procedure. Rather, what is true to say, it harms and wounds each and every one who gets the procedure. And it wounds them at one of the deepest levels of our humanity. And this is why divine mercy is so essential, not only to the spiritual life and redemption of these souls, but, and this is my main point, my friends, the divine mercy healing people from abortion is essential to the very survival of our species. Let me tell you why. There is something built into human nature by which, built into really the nature of every species, by which we respond to the helpless cry of a member of our own species, the helpless cry of a baby, or of a person who cannot defend themselves from some danger, or from an elderly or ill individual. We know how to hear the helpless cry of a member of our own species. Now, those of you who are moms and dads, you know what it's like when you first have a child and are awakened all hours of the night by the child's helpless cry. The child needs you. And is it not normal to have at the same time a reaction of annoyance and even anger. But then you approach the child, you embrace the child. What happens to that annoyance? What happens to that anger? It absolutely dissipates. It completely changes into tender love and care. If it didn't, we wouldn't survive as a species. We wouldn't be able to reproduce. We wouldn't be able to go to the next generation. The helpless cry of any member of any species must be met with tender love, concern, and protection. Otherwise, the species can't go forward. Now, what does abortion do? It distorts our response to the helpless cry. Because in an abortion, a person is actually making the decision, and obviously with different degrees of knowledge and responsibility, we know that not sometimes, but most of the time, those who are having abortions don't want to. They're doing it not as a choice, but because they feel they have no freedom and no choice. They feel trapped, abandoned, desperate, afraid. They're not doing it because they want to do it. They're doing it despite the fact that they don't want to do it. But nevertheless, what they're doing is to not only not respond to the helpless cry, but to give the opposite response: violence and death. And this affects a person's ability to respond to it later on. Much of the devastation of the self-esteem, the wanting to die, the feeling that everything good and holy inside of me was aborted when my child was aborted, touches on this reality that, a person who has done this, and there are some right here in this room who know from experience what I'm talking about, a person who has done this is no longer sure who they are. Because they ask themselves, was this really me? Did I cross that boundary that we all have? We all have a boundary beyond which it's very difficult to go. And that is the line that we cross when we kill somebody. We have spiritually, morally, psychologically, even physically, a barrier there that prevents us from taking the life of another human being. But when you realize that you crossed that barrier, you're afraid of yourself. How far am I able to go in doing what I don't want to do, in harming others in a way I don't want to harm them? I no longer know who I am. And the response to the helpless cry is distorted, is wounded, is set off balance. And so these moms who have had abortions very often are afraid to be moms again. What harm am I going to do to my child? And if something bad does happen to a subsequent child, they feel like what? God is punishing them. What is God doing? He is calling us back to mercy. And if we are no longer sure we can respond to the helpless cry, if we as a species can no longer even survive because we've literally turned in the other direction of survival, if we're not sure who we are anymore, as individuals, as parents, or as a people, then it is divine mercy alone that can restore that. Because in divine mercy, we're not only talking about the forgiveness of sin. I want to show you today this is something bigger. It has to do with the very survival of humanity, because one form of violence leads to another. As Mother Teresa said, the fruit of abortion is nuclear holocaust. It's the survival of our species, and it's also the understanding of who we are. Because in mercy, the rays of God's mercy are light that enable us to see who we are meant to be, sons and daughters of God. People who have been involved in abortion tend to think, God could never invite me to that again. How can I be a child of God if I killed my own child? The rays of divine mercy help us to understand who we are, and that the evil we have done is distinct from who we are. Yes, we've done it, and therefore we've become evildoers, but we have not become evil. There's a difference. An evildoer can still be redeemed, can still be a son, a daughter of God. Divine mercy helps the human family to understand who we are and what we are called to be. And the chaplet of divine mercy in particular was given to us as a response to the sin of abortion. I read to you from the diary of Sister Faustina, St. Faustina. On at least 3 occasions from 8 to 11 in the evening, this is from diary number 1276, she felt like her insides were being torn apart. She suffered so much that she thought she was going to die, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was ailing her. No medication was able to alleviate her sufferings, and later she was given to understand that she was undergoing those pains for mothers who were aborting their children. And then in diary number 474, we see the revelation of the chaplet, and she explained that the city was to be chastised for its sins, primarily the sin of abortion. Brothers and sisters, I have had the privilege to sit with men and women who, after having made their living by killing children as abortion providers, have turned to God in repentance and sought and found His mercy. I've sat in the presence of people who, between themselves, had killed tens of thousands of these children. And they found the mercy of the Lord. And they resolved, some of them, that when they went back home from the healing retreat that we were offering for them, they were going to contact the women on whom they had performed abortions in order to apologize to them. This is the extent to which mercy can change us and can remind us who we are. Help us to get these testimonies out. Because when women and men, as those in our Silent No More awareness campaign, can stand on the street corner of a city holding a sign that says, "I regret my abortion," or the men holding a sign in public in front of total strangers, holding a sign that says, "I regret lost fatherhood," or when an abortionist can stand up there and proclaim his or her repentance, what do you think is going to happen? Not only are people going to understand that abortion is a dead end and it's never a solution and it's not a benefit for women, but something else is going to happen too. People who are alienated from God by all kinds of sins are going to look and they're going to say, if this person found mercy after an abortion, well then maybe there's mercy for me. And they will come back. And they are coming back. But we all have to reach them together. We're doing these campaigns throughout the world, but there are some hearts that can only be reached by you. Some lives that can only be changed by you. Some abortions that can only be prevented by you. Some who can receive God's mercy only from you. You lending your voice and your efforts to the proclamation of this mercy. You are all familiar with Priests for Life, and we're going to give you some prayer cards now. That many of you have gotten our prayer cards, but I urge you to say this prayer every day for an end to abortion, and some of my staff are here and will give you a card if you haven't gotten one yet. If you have gotten one, just pass them along to the next person. They're going to pass them up and down the rows. But brothers and sisters, you can find on that card how you can reach us on the internet and in other ways, and you can join in with this Silent No More campaign, even if you have never been involved in an abortion. Help us to spread the testimonies, help us to invite people to healing, help us to mobilize worldwide this great witness to divine mercy. And there's another witness to divine mercy, and I want to introduce Father Anthony now. Father Anthony Gramlich, you know, I just celebrated my 20th anniversary as a priest, and And I was thinking about that today because he really is a baby priest. by comparison, and he looks like one too. It looks like he's still in the seminary. But Father Anthony actually was ordained in 2002, having made his perpetual profession of vows in the Marians of the Immaculate Conception the previous year. He serves now as the rector of the National Shrine of the Divine Mercy in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. What a wonderful assignment to have. Imagine that, the National Shrine of Divine Mercy. I know many of you have been there. I have as well. But he's initiating a brand new effort that he's going to tell you about to bear witness particularly to the mercy God extends to those who have lost a child, including those who have had their child killed by abortion. It's going to be a marvelous, marvelous channel of grace, and I'd like to invite Father Anthony to talk to us more. Father Anthony Gramlich, and thank you all.
I'd like to thank Father Frank Pavone for providing for us such a marvelous witness to life and all that he does for life. I'd like to share with you about a new project that we have at the National Shrine of Divine Mercy called the Shrine of the Holy Innocents, which is a pro-life memorial dedicated to all children that have passed away, whether it's through abortion, miscarriage, stillborn, or maybe children that were lost at a young age. And this Shrine of the Holy Innocents is to provide mercy and healing and hope to those who have lost a child. I'd like to share with you a little background for how the Shrine of the Holy Innocents came about. I lost my notes. I don't have any notes. I brought the wrong notes last night, and I said, oh, it's got to be come Holy Spirit. About summer of 2006, I do my holy hour in the Shrine of the Divine Mercy in front of the image of the Divine Mercy. And I was hearing the Lord say to my heart, you need to do something, because there are men and women that are crying out to me for mercy, and I want you to do something about it. So he said, oh, what do you want me to do? And I knew what the Lord was talking about. He was talking about men and women that have had abortions and are crying out to Him for mercy, and they're not finding any mercy in the world. And they're saying, Lord, where do I go to? Where do I find mercy and compassion? And so the Lord was saying, He was saying to me, I want you to do something about this. And so I said, all right, I don't know what to do. And I kept getting it in prayer, night after night after night, in front of the image of the Divine Mercy. Jesus was saying, they're crying out to me, and they have nowhere to go. Go and give them divine mercy. And I knew at that time that the Lord was calling the whole message of divine mercy to now go into the pro-life arena and to spread that message of divine mercy in the pro-life arena. And so I was praying on it. I finally was saying, well, what do I do? I knew about Rachel's Vineyard, but I had no idea where to start. So finally, it was becoming so strong, and I was the vice rector at that time, that I asked the rector, I said, can we do something here? I said, we need to do something. And he said, all right. And he said, I'm going to call up the national office of Rachel's Vineyard and ask them, how do I begin Rachel's Vineyard here in New England? Because I noticed that we did not have Rachel's Vineyard here in New England. I called up the national office, and I talked to one of the secretaries there of the Rachel's Vineyard. She said, I can't believe that you're calling. The same week that I called, someone from the Diocese of Springfield, Massachusetts, the diocese that the shrine is in, had called wanting to start up a Rachel's Vineyard in Massachusetts. It was the same exact week we both called. And so I said, can you give me the number of this person that called? I'd like to speak with her. Maybe we could get together and do something. And that's exactly what we did. We got together. We had the bishop's support of the diocese. Bishop McDonald has been very supportive of the Rachel's Vineyard ministry. We got people together, people that were into pro-life, sisters, brothers, priests, and we formed a team within 6 months. And they said sometimes it takes 3 years to form a team. It was a miracle. The Lord was really working. And so our first retreat, we weren't going to have at the National Shrine. And I heard the Lord say to my heart, I want the first retreat to be at the National Shrine of Divine Mercy. And I said, well, Lord, you're going to have to work that, because we already have the retreat scheduled someplace else. And he said, don't worry about it. So I received a call from someone who was on the staff. We had a staff by this time. And she said, Father Anthony, our retreat place is canceled. Can we have our first retreat at the National Shrine of the Divine Mercy? And I said, yes, we can. I said, I already know. And so we had our first retreat at the National Shrine of Divine Mercy. Then we had another retreat. Then we had another retreat and another retreat. We've had Rachel's Vineyard for 2.5 years. And I can tell you, I've been intimately involved in people's lives. There's nothing greater for a priest to be able to offer divine mercy to someone who's had an abortion. I can tell you, it has affected my priesthood in profound ways. I've only been a priest for 6 years. I'm a young priest. I got a baby face. Or I say it's the fountain of youth, the Eucharist. And I've seen men and women. Sometimes the men cry more on the retreat than the women. And I've seen on Friday the darkness on their faces. I see them, they're like this. They don't even want to look at anyone. And by Sunday, I see an incredible light of the resurrection. When they meet their children or child, when they've gone to confession, when they've experienced the resurrection. And it all happens in 3 days. How long did it take Jesus Christ to redeem the world? 3 days. Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter Sunday. And it's like an Easter Sunday by the time these men and women come out of the retreat. And it's absolutely incredible. You can see the light in the eyes. When I hear a confession and I'm given absolution, I see an immediate change. I just see the light in the eyes. I'm sure Father Frank has experienced the same thing as a priest. It's the most incredible thing to witness. And so I've been involved in this retreat. I'm still involved in the Rachel's Vineyard. It's one of the greatest things to be able to offer divine mercy to those who are healing. And I've heard from retreatants themselves say to me, I cannot believe that I am receiving my healing from my abortion here at the National Shrine of the Divine Mercy. And I just rejoice. And I say, and you can keep coming back for that mercy. You can keep on drinking. Because we're not a parish You can come. No one has to know you. Just come and receive all that you need. Every time I've given out an image of the divine mercy, especially to those who have had abortions, they take it and they say, "Oh, what is this?" Jesus with his heart open and his rays of mercy. And I just want to hear that word, mercy. And so I know it has a profound effect on those who have had an abortion. So how did the Shrine of the Holy Innocents come about? Well, one day I invited a bunch of retreatants. Actually, they were staff members from a Rachel's Vineyard up to the shrine. And he said, "You got to see the shrine. Come on up. I'll take you on a grand tour." So they all came up, took them on a tour of the shrine, and we went into one of our candle shrines. It's called Our Lady of Mercy Candle Shrine. And we have beautiful candles in there, and we have an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And besides the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, we have our donors' names up there in plaques. And so one of the members, she's post-abortive, she said to me, she said, "Father Anthony," she said, "would you ever consider having a memorial shrine dedicated to our children, where we could have our children's names in gold up here on plaques?" And I said, "No, I never thought of that, but that's a great idea." I knew the Holy Spirit was speaking through her. And so I shared the idea up on the hill with some members. Can we have some kind of memorial shrine dedicated to the unborn? I don't know how, I don't know what. Let's just think about it. Well, at that time, we had a new project where we were building an outdoor shrine. If you ever see Divine Mercy Sunday in that little, what we call the A-frame that we were using, it's too small. So we need to build something bigger. And it was coming from the bishop. The bishop got soaking wet one year. And the Eucharist got soaking wet. And he told us, "You need to build something bigger." So when it comes from the bishop, I guess it comes from God. We have to do it. And so we built this outdoor shrine. And we noticed that we had a lower part of the shrine that didn't have anything in it. And so we said, "Well, what should we do with the lower part?" So we put our minds together and we said, "Why don't we do a memorial shrine dedicated to deceased children?" At first we were thinking just about abortion, the unborn. And then we said, "Well, why don't we extend this memorial shrine to include miscarriages, to include stillborn?" You know how many people have had miscarriages, stillborns, or children that have been lost in infancy? And so we decided, let's do it. Let's do it. And so we haven't built the shrine yet, but we've built the outdoor shrine. It's called the Mother of Mercy Shrine. It's dedicated to our Mother Mary and her mercy. And in the lower part, we have a project plans now to build what's called the Shrine of the Holy Innocents, a new memorial shrine that is dedicated to all deceased children. And what we will have in the shrine is we're going to have a statue of Our Lady Guadalupe in the middle. And then behind Our Lady Guadalupe on the walls, we're going to have these like tile memorial plaques. They're not like bathroom tiles, but they're better than bathroom tiles, in which the children's names can be imprinted on these memorial plaques, in which parents, relatives of these children can have their baby's name on the plaque. Then we're going to have like a waterfall on the side, running water. So it's going to be a place of prayer. And then I have an idea. This is still idea stage, but I'm going to implement it. I don't know how, but it'll be implemented. That we're going to have speakers in the back with the children singing to their parents. And then we're going to have kneelers in the front and benches on the back for people to come and pray and receive healing and hope and mercy. And we're also going to have candles, and we have a new program called Candles for Life, in which someone can have a candle lit for their child or for their intentions or whatever it may be. So we have this whole big project of the Shrine